The most dangerous man is not the one who shouts at the gates. It's the one who asks questions no one dares to answer. That's not just a quote. That's a warning. In a world obsessed with noise, trends, and obedience disguised as virtue, Sigma males are the quiet detonations society never sees coming. They don't storm the stage. They don't need applause. But they ask the kinds of questions that make evil flinch, systems sweat, and liars suddenly forget how to speak. And here's a cold, hard fact most people don't want to hear. The average person consumes over 74 gigabytes of information daily, but questions less than 1% of it. Now think about that. We're basically stuffing our minds like digital hoarders and still treating curiosity like a crime. But Sigma males, oh no, they don't play that game. They don't settle for the edited version of reality. They zoom in, dig deeper, and poke at the cracks until truth either spills out or screams for mercy. They're not paranoid, they're precise. And the questions they ask, let's just say they make propaganda wish it had an off switch. So, if you're here for another feel-good cookie-cutter personality type breakdown, this ain't it. But if you're ready to hear how Sigma males rattle cages, disarm deception, and ask the questions that evil hopes never see daylight, then buckle up. This is going to sting, expose, and maybe even set your brain on fire. In a good way, not a call the fire department way. Welcome to 12 Ways Sigma Males. Ask the questions evil doesn't want answered. Let's tear the mask off, shall we? Number 1. They question the emotional baiting used by institutions. Sigma males have a radar for emotional manipulation. They can smell it through perfectly polished speeches, Instagram captions soaked in fake vulnerability, and media headlines designed to get people frothing at the mouth over whatever today's trending outrage is. While most people get swept away in the emotional high of it all, Sigma males pause and go, wait, who's benefiting from me feeling this way? That's the kind of question most people don't even think to ask. But that's exactly where the trap is. Institutions, whether it's governments, corporations, media giants, or even social movements, have mastered the art of emotional baiting. They wrap their message in just enough fear, guilt, or false hope to keep the masses invested, distracted, and reactive. But Sigma males don't respond to emotional fireworks. They look at the wires under the surface. They know when someone is trying to control them with feelings instead of facts. They've learned that most outrage is engineered, most guilt is implanted, and most of what people call truth is just a well-packaged opinion with a target audience. And this isn't some conspiracy mindset, it's observation. They've seen how easily people can be herded when they're emotionally charged and mentally passive. That's why Sigma males always dissect the message and the messenger. They don't just ask, "What are you saying?" They ask, "Why are you saying it like that? And who gains when I believe it?" They also understand that when someone plays the emotional card too often, it's usually because they don't want you thinking too much. Because thinking slows down the emotional reaction. It introduces doubt. It kills the magic trick. And that's exactly what Sigma males do. They ruin the magic trick. They expose how people are being played. And because of that, they often get labeled as cold, distant, or too analytical. But what's really happening is simple. They refuse to be emotionally manipulated into loyalty, guilted into silence, or pushed into outrage over something they haven't fully thought through. Sigma males know that the most dangerous lies are the ones that come wrapped in a feeling, so they treat emotion like a signal, not a command. When everyone else is reacting, they're questioning, and that's exactly what evil can't stand. Number 2. They question why obedience is the gateway to success. Sigma males don't buy into the fantasy that success is purely about hard work and good intentions. They see the underbelly, the quiet, uncomfortable truth that in many environments, obedience gets you farther than originality. Be agreeable, nod in the right meetings, never question authority, and suddenly you're a team player with a corner office. But dare to think independently, challenge bad ideas, or refuse to kiss up to power, and you're branded difficult, uncooperative, or not aligned with company values. Sigma males see that for what it is, a system designed not to reward intelligence, but to control it. They start asking uncomfortable questions. Why are the most obedient people the ones climbing the ladder? Why do the boldest thinkers get sidelined, silenced, or quietly pushed out? Why is compliance the golden ticket while rebellion, even intelligent rebellion, is treated like a threat? Sigmas aren't rebellious just for the sake of it, but they won't ignore when conformity starts to smell like cowardice. They know that many people at the top didn't rise because they were brilliant. They rose because they didn't rock the boat. And once they're up there, they make damn sure no one else does either. To Sigma males, that's not success. It's submission with perks. They see how systems prop up the people who say yes to everything, not because they're the best, but because they're the easiest to manage. Sigmas don't admire that. They're repulsed by it. They believe real success should be earned through value, vision, and authenticity, not performance loyalty and professional brown-nosing. So when they're labeled non-compliant or too independent, they wear it like armor, because they'd rather be dismissed for thinking freely than rewarded for shutting up. They ask the question most people are too afraid to whisper. Is the system really promoting excellence, or just selecting the best-behaved prisoners? And the scariest part is, the answer usually confirms their worst suspicion. That's why Sigma males keep their distance. They don't want to succeed by becoming a pawn. They'd rather build their own board and flip the whole game. Number 3. They expose the absurd morality of fake outrage. Sigma males have a zero-tolerance policy for performative outrage. They don't flinch when the internet's on fire over some carefully selected controversy. In fact, they raise an eyebrow and ask, why this? Why now? Because when everyone's losing their minds over a celebrity's opinion, a 6-second clip, or some algorithm-approved scandal, Sigma males aren't triggered, they're tracking the pattern. They know fake outrage is one of the most powerful smokescreens ever created. It keeps people busy, loud, and emotionally drained, while the real problems stay untouched, and the puppet masters keep cashing checks. They notice how the public is conditioned to care about things in cycles. Today's villain becomes tomorrow's hashtag, and by the weekend, we're already mad at someone else. Sigma males step back and ask the one question that instantly kills the mood. Who benefits from this distraction? That alone makes them enemies of the agenda, because once people realize their anger is being monetized, through clicks, ads, political narratives, and shallow brand activism, it becomes impossible to take any of it at face value. But most people don't want that realization. It's uncomfortable. It requires thinking. So they double down on the outrage and call anyone who doesn't join in insensitive. That's the trick Sigma males refuse to fall for. They know that when outrage becomes trendy, morality gets outsourced to algorithms and PR departments. Suddenly people aren't thinking critically, they're performing, saying what they're supposed to say, feeling what they're supposed to feel. And meanwhile, the real issues, the systemic corruption, the quiet suffering, the stuff that doesn't fit a trending hashtag, gets ignored. That's what pisses Sigma males off. Not the outrage itself, but how misplaced it is. They don't scream to fit in. They expose the silence where the real outrage should be. They ask why people care more about who said what on Twitter than who's pulling the strings behind billion-dollar scams, war economies, and social engineering. They don't get distracted by the loudest story. They follow the quiet money. And that kind of clarity? It's lethal in a world built on manipulation. That's why evil fears them. Because Sigma males don't just see through the illusion, they make it collapse by asking the one question that ruins the whole show: who's getting rich off your outrage? Number 4. They question comfort zones as weapons of control. Sigma males don't romanticize comfort, they question it. They see how the modern world sells comfort like it's the holy grail. On-demand everything, instant validation, dopamine on tap. But underneath all that convenience is a quiet kind of control. The kind that doesn't need a dictator or a whip, just a screen, a like button, and a carefully curated illusion of safety. Sigma males start to ask the kind of questions that make comfort look suspicious. Why is everything designed to be effortless now? Why is discomfort treated like trauma? And more importantly, who benefits when people stay soft, scared, and stuck? They notice how comfort zones are rarely about real peace. They're about programmed paralysis. The systems are slick about it too. They tell people they're being protected, empowered, or looked after, when in reality, they're being emotionally bubble-wrapped into compliance. You don't grow there. You don't question there. You just exist in a loop of instant gratification, external validation, and algorithm-approved opinions. Sigma males don't buy into that lifestyle. They view comfort zones like cages with velvet walls, pleasant on the surface, but still a trap. They push past that illusion by asking what people are really afraid of when they cling to comfort. Is it failure, rejection, or the terrifying thought that they might have to think for themselves? That's where Sigma males separate themselves from the crowd. They're not anti-comfort. They're just hyper-aware of how it's being used as a leash. They understand that the most dangerous form of control isn't brute force, it's sedation. It's the kind of life where everything looks fine on the outside, but your soul's rotting because you've been lulled into mental retirement. So they challenge it. They step into discomfort on purpose. They do hard things not because they're masochists, but because it keeps them sharp, aware, and free. And when they escape the trap, they don't just walk out quietly. They leave breadcrumbs, a tweet here, a question there, a refusal to follow the script. Enough to spark curiosity in anyone else who's starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, their comfort zone is a coffin dressed in cozy language. That's why Sigma males are dangerous. They don't just escape the system, they dare others to see it for what it is. Number 5. They ask who benefits from making you feel powerless. Sigma males aren't just rebellious, they're surgical in how they question power. They don't automatically push back against authority just to feel edgy. They get quiet, they observe, and then they ask one lethal question. Who benefits when you believe you're powerless? That question alone shreds half of society's conditioning. Because let's be honest, most people aren't taught to think for themselves, they're taught to doubt themselves. Every system, be it political, educational, religious, or corporate, plants subtle messages that say, this is too big to change, so don't even try. And people absorb that lie like it's gospel. But Sigma males aren't built to just absorb, they dissect. They want to know why helplessness is always marketed as realism, why the average person is trained to believe that their best option is to adapt, not challenge. And when they ask, who's getting paid when you feel powerless? The truth gets ugly fast. Because there are people profiting from hopelessness. Entire industries make a killing from it. Pharmaceutical giants, media empires, lobbying machines, and even social movements that capitalize on victimhood instead of solutions. Sigma males can see through that game. They know that if you convince someone their voice doesn't matter, they'll hand over their power willingly. No resistance needed. Just a few slogans, a few depressing headlines, and suddenly the fire inside them turns into silence. That's not peace. That's programming. So Sigmas do what most people are too exhausted or too distracted to do. They trace the lie to its source. They follow the money, the media spin, the political timing. And they don't stop until the illusion starts to crack. They're not asking these questions to play devil's advocate. They're asking because they're allergic to mental slavery. And when they do ask, you can feel the system flinch. Because deep down, those in power know that the biggest threat isn't chaos or protest, it's clarity. And Sigma males carry that clarity like a weapon. They don't scream, they don't campaign. They just ask the kind of question that makes people stop scrolling and start waking up. And once that happens, the lie doesn't stand a chance. Number 6. They challenge the morality of silence in good people. Sigma males are wired to notice what others politely ignore. And nothing disturbs them more than the kind of silence that wears a suit, smiles in meetings, and claims to be neutral. They ask the question everyone else tries to avoid. If you claim to be a good person, why are you so quiet when something wrong is happening right in front of you? They're not talking about the loud villains, the ones who thrive on chaos. They're pointing at the so-called decent folks who turn away, stay polite, and say things like, "It's not my place," or "I don't want to get involved." Sigmas see right through that. Because when evil wears a nice tie and uses the right corporate language, suddenly everyone gets very quiet, and that's exactly how it spreads. To Sigma males, silence isn't neutral, it's enabling. It's compliance with better lighting. And they get especially suspicious when people who constantly talk about values, ethics, and justice suddenly go mute when the injustice is close to home. That disconnect bothers them, because those same good people are often quick to post the right things online, wear the right pins, and hashtag the trending cause. But when something real happens, when someone's being crushed by a system or humiliated in a boardroom, they disappear into the wallpaper. Sigma males don't just question this, they confront it. Not with loud protests or rants, but with razor-sharp observations that make people squirm. They'll ask, why is your morality so loud when it's safe and so silent when it matters? They don't care about virtue signaling. They care about action. And they know real evil doesn't need mobs to thrive. It just needs everyone to shut up and carry on like nothing happened. That's the part that makes them dangerous in any environment built on silent complicity. They force people to look in the mirror and realize that being nice isn't the same as being good. That sometimes evil isn't wearing a villain costume. It's wrapped in HR policies, political correctness, and quiet, calculated avoidance. Sigma males don't let that slide. They don't just ask the hard questions. They ask them in rooms where nobody wants to hear them. Because they know the real battlefield isn't out in the streets. It's in the silence of so-called good people doing nothing. And they're not afraid to light that silence on fire. Number 7. They don't fear the truth that makes them outcasts. Sigma males don't flinch when the truth costs them everything. They don't water it down to keep people comfortable, and they sure as hell don't sugarcoat it to protect their image. They'll ask the kind of questions that get them side-eyed at the dinner table, unfollowed by peers, and quietly exiled from fake tribes built on emotional codependency. They know the cost of truth, and they pay it without hesitation. Not because they enjoy being outcasts, but because they've made peace with the fact that the truth and belonging rarely live in the same house. They've seen how most people will trade their voice for acceptance, how whole social circles are built on mutual delusion. Don't rock the boat, don't say the obvious, don't question the foundation, just keep smiling. But Sigma males weren't built for groupthink. They don't need tribe validation to function, so when they spot a lie that everyone else is tiptoeing around, they don't play along. They press it, hard. And when the group turns cold, they don't beg to stay. They leave, knowing that staying would mean betraying themselves just to keep others comfortable. It's not rebellion for the sake of ego. It's loyalty to reality. Sigma males believe that truth is a solo war. It's not about convincing everyone else. It's about refusing to lie to yourself just to feel safe. That's why they walk away from conversations where everyone's pretending. That's why they lose friends who once praised their honesty until it cut too close. That's why they often stand alone while others bond over shared illusions. And you know what? They're fine with that, because they'd rather walk alone with a clear conscience than sit in a circle full of smiling liars. They don't see truth as a debate to be won. They see it as a compass that either sets you free or chains you to people who were never really with you. And when the smoke clears, when the fake tribes collapse under their own weight, it's the Sigma male who's still standing. Not because he played the game, but because he refused to. Number 8. They ask why privacy became a red flag. Sigma males aren't obsessed with being mysterious. They're just naturally private. But they've noticed something deeply off about how the world treats that privacy. In today's culture, where people upload their trauma, relationships, opinions, and breakfast in real time, the ones who keep quiet are treated like a problem. Sigmas don't share for clout. They don't explain themselves to strangers, and that alone gets them flagged. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they refuse to play the modern transparency circus that's become society's favorite addiction. They ask the unsettling question, when did keeping to yourself become a red flag? Why is choosing silence over spectacle treated like hiding something? They see how the system doesn't just reward oversharing, it demands it. It trains people to hand over every detail of their lives in exchange for likes, belonging, and validation. Privacy has become the new rebellion, and Sigmas know why. Because a private person is hard to sell to, hard to predict, hard to control. If you're not uploading your every mood swing or broadcasting your struggles, how can algorithms study you? How can institutions manipulate you? How can anyone pre-package your identity and sell it back to you? That's the threat. Not that Sigmas are dangerous, but that they're unreadable. The system isn't afraid of criminals, it has entire institutions to deal with them. What it fears are individuals it can't categorize. People who don't announce their every move, who don't beg for approval, and who live by internal codes instead of public applause. Sigmas walk through the world with a quiet self-possession that makes others uncomfortable because it reminds them of how much they've outsourced their identity to apps, opinions, and trends. Sigmas don't overshare because they understand the power of mystery. Not for manipulation, but for freedom. They know that when you keep parts of yourself untouched by public consumption, those are the parts no one can corrupt. That's what makes them dangerous in a world that thrives on surveillance disguised as socializing. While most people are busy turning their lives into content, Sigmas are asking the one question no one wants to hear. Who benefits when you have no inner world left to protect? And the silence that follows that question is exactly why they stay quiet, and exactly why the system hates it. Number 9. They challenge the addictive nature of distraction. Sigma males don't just avoid distraction, they dissect it. They know it's not just a modern habit, it's a weapon. In a world addicted to scrolling, swiping, reacting, and consuming, Sigma males pause and ask the question that nobody wants floating in their head. Who's benefiting from your inability to sit still with your own thoughts? Because let's be real, most people aren't just distracted, they're hooked. And that's no accident. It's not a glitch in the system. It is the system. They notice how the world doesn't just make noise, it rewards people for staying plugged into it 24/7. Spend hours on entertainment? Normal. Binge irrelevant content? Relatable. Go viral for something pointless? You're a star. But focus, silence, solitude, suddenly you're weird, antisocial, maybe even a threat? That contrast tells Sigmas everything they need to know. There's a reason why concentration is treated like a superpower now. It's rare because it's under attack. Sigmas look at this chaos and don't just shake their heads, they question the architecture behind it. Why is every platform designed to hijack your attention? Why do companies and governments throw resources at keeping people constantly stimulated? The answer is brutally simple. Distracted people don't question power. They don't organize. They don't reflect. They don't even realize they're being played. They're too busy chasing dopamine hits to notice the strings above them. And Sigma males don't play that game. They don't just unplug. They resist becoming predictable. They cut through the digital smog and protect their attention like a sacred currency. Not because they're trying to be better than anyone else, but because they know what's really being stolen when you give it away mindlessly. Your clarity, your drive, your inner fire. Sigmas know that real control doesn't require chains. It just needs people too distracted to care. So while others are sedated by screens and endless opinions, Sigmas ask the question no algorithm wants you to hear. If you had your focus back, what would you finally see? And that's the terrifying part for the system. Because the second someone regains control of their attention, the illusions start to collapse. And Sigma males, they were never interested in the illusion to begin with. Number 10. They refuse to accept coincidence as an answer. Sigma males don't settle for coincidence as a lazy excuse. When the same patterns crash over society like déjà vu on steroids, political scandals recycled, economic crashes following eerily similar scripts, cultural trends rising and falling in perfect loops, they don't shrug and say, "Oh, that's random." No, they smell a blueprint. They see the fingerprints behind the chaos, the hidden architects pulling strings and reusing the same playbook, chapter after chapter. They ask the tough question that most people avoid, because it makes life feel too complex, too conspiratorial, or simply uncomfortable. Who's behind this? Why do we keep stumbling into the same traps, the same lies, the same injustices, all dressed up with different actors but the same script? Sigmas refuse to believe that history is just a broken record playing by chance. They see repetition as evidence of control, manipulation, and intentional design. To them, calling these things random is the easiest way for those in power to deflect responsibility and keep the masses in the dark. It's a smokescreen, a distraction tactic to make people stop asking questions. Sigmas cut through the noise by refusing to accept randomness as an answer. They understand that in a world where data is tracked, politics is strategized, and narratives are crafted, coincidence is often the biggest lie of all. They don't obsess over conspiracy theories just to feel edgy. They hunt for patterns to uncover truths. And those truths often unsettle everyone else because they demand accountability. Sigmas aren't satisfied until the curtain lifts and the puppeteers are exposed. Because if you buy into coincidence too easily, you give up your power to understand. And that's exactly what the game is designed to do. In a landscape where everything repeats with suspicious precision, Sigma males are the ones who refuse to be fooled. They see the cycles, the reruns, the déjà vu, and they ask the question no one dares. Who benefits from us believing it's all just random chance? That question alone makes them a threat to the comfortable lies most people live by. Number 11. They ask why conformity feels so much like cowardice now. Sigma males aren't just tuned out of trends. They see conformity as something deeper, something corrosive. They ask why following the crowd no longer feels like safety, but feels like a kind of surrender. When did blending in become less about fitting in and more about giving up? Why does doing what you're told come with this invisible, crushing weight that tightens around your chest like you're betraying some unspoken part of yourself? They don't just shrug at this feeling, they dig into it. They question who sold the lie that obedience equals virtue, because somewhere along the line, doing your duty got twisted into giving up your soul. People are told to conform as if it's a moral badge, be a good citizen, respect authority, play by the rules. But Sigma males see the emotional toll it takes, the subtle shaming and internal conflict that happens when you silence your instincts to fit in. Conformity starts to feel less like a choice and more like a sentence. You're not just wearing a uniform, you're shrinking into one. They notice that this pressure isn't accidental. It's a tool, a methodical way to keep people docile and predictable. Sigma males ask, who benefits when millions act out of fear of standing out? When courage is redefined as rebellion and compliance is called maturity. Because true strength isn't in obedience, it's in questioning, pushing back, and standing alone if needed. Sigma males live that truth daily. To them, conformity today isn't just a personal choice. It's a social weapon disguised as a virtue. It's the emotional price tag slapped on anyone who dares to be different. They're not just rejecting trends or rules. They're refusing to pay that price. And that refusal makes them dangerous to the system that depends on silence, uniformity, and the illusion that obedience is the highest form of good. Number 12. They turn the spotlight back on the puppet masters. Sigma males don't waste time obsessing over the noisy puppets dancing on the stage. They're too busy studying the shadows behind the curtain. While everyone else is hypnotized by headlines, surface drama, and public fall guys, Sigmas ask the one question that turns the whole game inside out. Who's actually pulling the strings? And why are those string pullers always buried beneath layers of vague excuses like coincidence, standard policy, or the classic, that's just how things work? They don't buy it. To a Sigma, there's no such thing as pure accident when the same people keep ending up with more power, more control, and more insulation from consequences. They don't think it's random when the rules always protect the same elite circles, or when public outrage is conveniently redirected like a magic trick. Sigma males spot the pattern, and they start digging. Not because they want chaos, but because they're allergic to blind obedience. They understand that systems are designed by people with motives. So when something feels off, when the outcomes always benefit the few at the cost of the many, they don't look away, they stare harder. And that's what makes them dangerous to the status quo. Because Sigmas don't just question the narrative, they question the narrators. They don't just ask, what happened? They ask, who made it happen and what did they gain? And the more questions they ask, the more uncomfortable it gets for those in power. Because a world full of distracted, obedient people is easy to control. But a Sigma male, he's not distracted and he sure as hell isn't obedient. He sees the whole playbook, not just the scene they want you to watch. He's the quiet observer in the back who notices that the puppet strings don't just move, they manipulate. And he refuses to be part of the show. At the heart of every Sigma male lies a relentless drive to peel back the layers of deception, to question the unspoken rules, and to challenge the comfortable illusions society clings to. They aren't just rebels for rebellion's sake. They are the quiet disruptors, the seekers of uncomfortable truths that most fear to face. In a world designed to numb, distract, and control, their questions act like cracks in the foundation, small openings that threaten to bring the whole structure tumbling down. What makes them truly formidable isn't brute force or loud defiance, it's their unwavering refusal to accept easy answers, their fearless curiosity, and the fierce independence that turns isolation into strength. So while the world tries to label, silence, or ignore them, Sigma males keep asking the questions evil desperately wants buried, because in those questions lie the seeds of awakening, resistance, and ultimately, freedom. And that is a story worth watching, listening to, and learning from. If this sparked something inside you, don't just scroll past. Hit that subscribe button and join the conversation. Like the video. If you're ready to challenge the status quo, drop a comment with the questions you think evil's been hiding, and share this with anyone who's tired of the easy answers. Let's break the silence together, one question at a time.